Hey, welcome back to Outmaneuver, and I'm Faith, and I'm here with J-Rod, Carbon, and his dudeness. Today we will be ranking the leaders for the Twin Suns format in Spark of Rebellion. If you want to see our rankings for the leaders in the Premier format, you can click on the link on the top of the screen now. Also, this tier list will be an average of all of four of our way too early individual lists, which we will discuss as we get into disagreements. Let's start with the D tier. On the D tier, we have Jin and Hera. What are your guys' thoughts on these leaders in Twin Suns?
Poop. A doggo brings
Yeah,
nothing to the table.
I mean, I think we all pretty much collectively agreed that these two were the worst. There wasn't too much disagreement here. Hera unfortunately suffers that her ability on her front side of ignoring the aspect penalty cost for specters doesn't come into play as much when you have an additional color, an additional aspect to deck build with, and you only have one copy of each card. So she's really only able to get you
A
like two or three
handful.
extra cards. Yeah,
Not even,
and they're
yeah.
not even that impactful of cards. It's like so really her flip side would have to be really, really strong, and unfortunately, it's just
It's
not. She's
not
got
really.
missing a point of health. Now, giving upgrades is pretty
Exactly.
good, but
I
there's
agree.
like compared to like Tarkin, right?
Her only real upside is that she could probably take a second aspect of the same color more easily than other people, because you can pull a couple extra specters, but, you still
Yeah.
play double green or double whatever you
Well,
want.
yeah. And who knows in future
But
sets if we get a ton more specters, then maybe she gets a bit easier to use and play. But yeah, for now she's unfortunately
or
seems like the worst option in Twin Suns.
Well, I don't think we're going to get as many specters in future sets, though we might. I think we will get more double green cards, and I think as Dunas was saying, that's where I can see her value going up. And we
Mhm.
actually have a reason to run more than one of the same color in Twin
yeah, a
Suns.
few sets down the line when we're playing with 80 card decks
Mhm.
and there's a bunch more double aspect cards, maybe trying to run a leader that helps you run those double aspects is gonna be worth it, but right now, definitely not.
For sure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Moving over to Jin, I think a problem with Jin is that she just she wants you to engage in combat and she wants you to take out someone else's units, but that is not as good I've found in Premiere because if you hit one of
Yeah,
my
Twin
guys,
Suns,
I'm
yeah,
gonna want to hit you back.
Yeah.
Yeah, Twin Suns, yeah.
Twin Suns.
Twin Suns.
Um,
Um,
but yeah, it's also like she's a kind of like a 1v1 leader, right? Because her ability only works
yeah,
on one
she's
single attack until she flips. Like when she flips, she's okay, but six, at least in the games that I've played, feels like a lot. Like especially like you played
I agree.
the Krennic Tarkin one, it flips on five, and like Han flips on five as well. So it's like she just comes out with turn two late to really have her ability affect the board, and like your units are probably gone, or like the game's ending soon-ish at that point already.
Well, she wants you to attack other units when in Twin Suns they've found it's often better just to attack the bases and keep everybody at equal health, so that you're even less incentivized to use her effect.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the C tier. C tier we have IG-88, Chirrut, Grand Inquisitor, and Grand Admiral Thrawn. What are our thoughts on C tier?
For
I think
me,
I just wanna say I think IG-88 might be higher than this because in Twin Suns, being unassuming is king here because you don't wanna be the guy that everyone wants to target. And who's gonna target the player playing IG-88? You know what I'm saying?
ah,
Like,
so
it's the same
so
thing with Thrawn, actually, or Grand Inquisitor, like, all these guys might actually be better than C tier because they are so bad that no one cares about them.
so what you're saying is the next game I go to with us, I should bring Hera, Jin, and you guys just won't attack me because my leader's just bad.
I mean, pretty much, no one will care.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I
Well,
think yeah, this is a very interesting group here in C. I think I had all or most of these leaders ranked a little bit higher than they ended up being in the average. I think they have some niche use cases. I like Thrawn in particular. Now, some people don't like Thrawn because he slows the game down a little bit when there's a few more players because he has to look at the top of each player's deck. But I think he's super fun for like trying to bargain with other players. Like you'll tell them what their top card is, you want to exhaust their unit. If they do something like they attack someone else's base, I think he's really interesting that he
He
provides
does open up
kind of
a lot of
leverage and yeah.
yeah, if you play Thrawn against me, I'm just gonna attack you and just try to kill you immediately. And I don't care if you win, if I win or not. Like you're just gonna die.
Jared
It's
does not
just
like Thrawn.
it's just the most unfun play experience. Let me look at your top card and your top card and your top card. Like I don't even care if you're fast about it. It's just like no, like just let's just play the game. You don't see anyone's top card. Let's go.
I would add a little bit to that. For me, in a multiplayer game, pace is king, and so you really have to be quick on understanding cards, reading information. I don't want you writing down my cards because that's just going to take you a long time to do all four. If you're if you're kind of newer at the game, I would really encourage not playing Thrawn. Just keep that pace up. If you're really good at the game and maybe you can do it, okay. But apart from that, I would avoid it.
Next game I'm playing Thrawn.
Oh, guess you know who I'm gonna attack first. See, in our games, what happens is that Faith just kind of sits there and stays quiet, and then Carbon Dudeness and I just like argue amongst each other and we fight. So Faith usually wins because of that.
Yeah. Well, speaking of these, some of the other leaders here, Chirrut, I think, has a lot of potential in this format. He's very interesting because unlike all these leaders you could get, there's, in Premier, obviously, there's only one action that you have to survive before you get to attack with the leader. And here there's three, so sometimes your leader can just get destroyed before it can even attack if the other players decide to gang up on you. Chirrut is the only leader that for sure survives that unless they have like a defeat card, right? And so he's going to be guaranteed to get a swing, and he's a great target also for buffs. And I think upgrades are a lot better in this format. You can kind of make a huge leader, and then nobody's really going to want to hit your leader, and then you just start hitting the base for a lot of damage. I think that strategy plays really well with Chirrut, and so I can expect to see him do, pretty well in the future.
I
I
had
would go ahead.
I had Chirrut a little bit higher, mostly because of the fact that he has a soft pass, because you can't pass in this game mode. So like his
Mhm.
ability is somewhat relevant in that factor where you can just kind of pass if you want to, because it's the reason why they took the pass out of it, as they mentioned today, was because people were passing too much. So the fact that he actually has an extra pass is probably pretty valuable in this game as well.
And giving Sentinels that +2 temporarily could be really good too to stave off an extra attack.
For me, one of my biggest disagreements with our combined list is Grand Inquisitor. I think Grand Inquisitor is really interesting now in a Twin Suns format. And also, I'm really looking forward to seeing him in the future. As we get more leaders, we'll have more on attack triggers. Something, I mean, very basic in this one is with Thrawn, with Tarkin, sorry, for instance, getting to give multiple experience counters, but also the fact that you can combine that with someone like Krennic, where it's going to make your guys bigger. I think he's got a lot of upside in Twin Suns format, and he gives you a force, which is a force keyword, which is also a really good keyword.
For sure.
Now let's look at our B tier. In our B tier, we have Leia, Darth Vader, and Boba Fett. What do we guys think of this?
How the mighty have fallen.
Yeah, it is quite a bit of a drop from Boba. In our premier list was, I mean, between all of us, I believe we all had him sitting alone in that S tier. He's just kind of by far the best leader in premier. We haven't really found anything that says otherwise. But in Twin Suns, we definitely have him ranked a bit lower.
Yeah, I don't think he's like bad by any means, and maybe he could be in the A tier, honestly. Like I don't think that's a terrible choice there. His ability, it just seems less relevant because I feel like units tend to die a little bit less in this. Although I will say he does get to do it from someone else defeating a unit as well, kind of like some other leaders that we'll have coming up here shortly, and that's pretty relevant. But also, there's going to be times where like the only unit that's defeated in the round happened before you got even a chance to play a card, so it's going to be not useful. So that's kind of the reason why I put him lower on this list myself than like ARS.
When I was looking at how I was ranking my leaders, I was looking at ranking leaders higher that did get affected by other people's interactions, not just your own interactions. So that's why I had Boba Fett in the later half of A tier. I still think he's strong. He still comes out at a good pace. I do agree though that he is a little bit harder in this format to get your most effective plays, especially because of the singleton format, and you're not able to have the consistent draws that you want all the time.
Mhm.
I would mention for me a leader that we do have here, Leia. I also had an A. I think I had her actually at the front of my A tier. And one of the reasons is when you defeat someone, if you can take out their last point of health, you instantly gain 5 health back. a restore 5 health to your base, and that's what Leia can do, in my opinion, pretty well, where she's able to bring 2 units, you can charge them however you want, and so I think that she could be really good at getting you that 5 health, which can be the difference a lot of the times in winning a game in Twin Suns.
My issue with her is that she action cheats, and I feel like in Twin Suns you don't want to do that as much. So I actually had her in the middle of B tier. It was mostly because of that, because she action cheats. So you're going to be like claiming a token basically every round with her because of that, and it's going to leave you open to a lot of possibilities from your opponents because you're going to have to either play a card when you don't want to. So like having reactive cards in her deck is not going to be as profitable as it would be in other decks. I think you just lose some flexibility with her as a leader.
Yeah, and she's quite like scary too. And something I found is that if people see you as scary, then they're gonna try and get rid of your stuff and get rid of your leader. And she definitely can threaten a lot of damage and a lot of like unpreventable damage because of her action cheating, swinging with multiple things. And while that is really strong, and especially for close finishing off opponents during the mid game, if you're not to that point yet, people might just decide that, okay, yeah, no, if you don't really need multiple rebel units, we're going to get rid of some of those, so you can't be using her ability. Then she definitely is a bit worse. I mean, I still think she's solid, right? All these leaders in B tier are still definitely solid, and I think are good with other pairings, right? But she just wasn't quite in A tier for me.
Dudeness, you've been playing the most Leia, I think, in our group in Twin Suns. What have your thoughts been of Leia?
I mean, she's fine. I did like the Leia Sabine deck. I was playing for a little bit, but
I imagine you get targeted with that deck a lot pretty early on.
I mean, yeah, you pump out the damage though, so I mean,
Yeah,
whatever. But I mean, yeah, it's not great because yeah, you are kind of a target, and you
right.
want to be a bit more unassuming.
Having Sabine as a rebel is also the kind of fun for Leia, getting to either use her when Leia attacks or just getting to tap and swing with 2 rebels.
It definitely is. I've only played a couple games with it. I want to play more, but
Yeah,
it's not exactly the same as Premier.
for sure. And our last leader in this B tier is Darth Vader, who I actually had in the back end of my A tier because while his front side isn't amazing, it's just something useful to do with any extra resources you have, which also can stall you actions as well. But also, once he flips things on the battlefield, he's going to be a commanding presence and really going to, make your opponents have to deal with him. But he's not aggressive early, so like sometimes your opponents kind of forget about him, and then once you get to deploy him, or even like playing like a resupply to get to 7 so they're not ready for him to deploy that turn can kind of be a big play and potentially swing a game in your favor.
The only problem is that he comes out at 7, so some of these games are kind of fast.
100%.
And if you play against 2 Sabines, right? 2 Sabines in the same game, you might not even have a chance to deploy your leader. Period at 7.
I mean, 2 siblings in the same game. Sounds like people are not having too much fun, huh?
It's
Well,
not
and,
great.
and Vader a little bit suffers from the same thing as Leia, where it's like if you Vader's using his front side ability against you, you feel very targeted by that, right? It's like, and yes, he can split up that 1 damage between the unit and the base, so he can hit 1 unit and a base. But if he's like removing your stuff with his ping or getting stuff damaged, that's not that's again making you more of a target. And since he doesn't come out to 7, he can't really defend himself as well as some of these other leaders that deploy sooner. So I kind of agree. I think roughly right about now he's B tier. Obviously, if he gets to deploy, he's a huge, massive game-ending threat. Which is why I don't think he's like lower than this, much lower than this.
Let's take a look at A tier now. We've got Cassian, Director Krennic, Chewbacca, Luke Skywalker, Harkin, and Emperor Palpatine. What are our thoughts on this A tier?
I haven't had
Yeah.
a chance to play with Cassian, but he seems pretty cool actually. Because Saboteur and being able to ignore Sentinels is fairly important in this format.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Cassian is. Sorry, go ahead, Joe.
Oh, good, good.
I was just gonna say, so Cassian is quite strong, and there's 2 things that are really good in this format so far, at least from what we've seen, and that's Sentinels and card advantage. Both of those are really, really good in this format. And Cassian by himself provides lots of card advantage with his ability, and also his deploy side lets you, if he lives, draw a card each turn for free, essentially, which is really strong. And then he's got Saboteur on top of that to bypass all the Sentinels that you'll see. And he also works very well with upgrades, as I talked a little bit before about with Shuret. He's very good when you're able to get some extra buffs on him and start swinging the base and drawing cards with him. So I mean, we have him kind of in this is the overall number 4 spot, and I definitely think he deserves that spot.
I think
Yeah.
just talking about how important Sentinels are, that's where for me I have Chewbacca. I had Chewbacca rated highly because he can just make any one of your units a Sentinel, which is really strong in this format, as mentioned. And yeah, I did have Cassian higher because I value that Sentinel so much. Having that Saboteur is so important, and like a unit that can't be targeted by a lot of removal. It's really nice.
Yeah, I think the understated thing about Sentinel in this mode that no one's really touched on is the fact that, like, in a 1v1, Sentinel is significantly worse because your opponent has to attack you to win the game regardless. So they're going to attack your Sentinel at some point and remove it. But in this mode, like, even Chewie's, like, one turn Sentinel's great because they're like, oh man, do I want to attack that Sentinel and, like, take damage on my unit, or do I want to just attack someone's base for 3? Like, I'm probably just going to attack someone's base for 3 just because it's more of a pain. So, like, having the Sentinel is just so much, even if it's just like a 2/4, it's still just like, I don't really want to attack a 2/4 right now. It's like puts damage on my unit, and that's always bad. And like it just having that there is kind of like an annoyance, and people will generally choose someone who doesn't have a Sentinel to attack.
Looking at another one of our top leaders here in A, Director Krennic. I'm a big Director Krennic fan, and I think one of the benefits that he provides, one is restore when he attacks, which is a great thing to give yourself
Good.
more health on your base. And then
Agreed.
also, yep, making your units stronger, as if they're damaged, they get that +1 attack. It makes your opponents think twice about, do I really want to A, attack his units without if I can't get rid of them? Because then they're going to be stronger. And then if they are stronger, oh, do I want to take more damage on my units to just hurt this other person? So I think that provides Krennic with a good kit in Twin Suns.
And his 7 booty is nothing to sneeze at either. Coming out at 5 is pretty big. Like nothing can really one shot him on turn 5, so it's a pretty tough unit to try to remove unless people like kind of team up and get rid of it. Which I do think Krennic is a leader that you have to get rid of pretty early on when he's deployed.
Yeah,
I've
or
seen
you
him
could put
paired
an
with
Electro Staff on him. He's pretty good.
Electro Staff, period, is just good on any leader in this format.
True that.
Yeah. Talking about looking at Luke and Tarkin, I kind of want to talk about these together a little bit because they do kind of similar things. Luke's providing shields for your board while Tarkin's providing experience, and these two are kind of single handedly responsible for the most out of control boards I've seen in playing Twin Suns so far. Luke, in particular, being able to give shields to Sentinel units is extremely powerful. As we already talked about, Sentinels are really good, and giving them shield just makes it so your opponent really does not want to attack in there and potentially lose their unit while you don't even lose any, base health. You just lose a shield.
Yep.
Luke's ability also having an additional leader, being able to give that leader a shield token is incredibly strong. So having a leader that deploys the same turn as Luke makes for a really strong deck. Similar with Tarkin. If you have an Imperial leader that deploys around the same turn as him, you can buff him with experience tokens, and that makes that leader extremely hard to get rid of. So they're both kind of in that similar vein of making your board very, very challenging to deal with.
Yes, I've seen a Krennic with a ridiculous amount of experience from Tarkin on it.
Yeah, but I think that was in our gameplay video. We had a Krennic with I think 4 or 5 experience. I think at the end of the game it was pretty crazy.
And an Electro Staff.
A little
And an Electro Staff.
nutty, little nutty.
Yeah, it's because one of us decided to kill a Gideon Hask instead of attack
Who did that?
the
Who
2/7.
would do such a thing? Who
I
would do
don't
that?
know.
That
That's
was
a terrible
Dudas. I
choice.
think that
That
was Dudas.
definitely,
Yeah.
definitely wouldn't have been me.
I think that was
Also,
Qburn actually.
I don't know about that, bro. I'm
But
not sure.
anyways, getting back to the tier list, Alps at the very end of A. I think he's a little bit lower than A because again, 8 is really slow to deploy here. It just takes so long, and whichever unit you steal, that person is going to not like you in any way, shape, or form. It is an
Yeah.
immediate enemy as soon as you deploy your leader, and I don't know if that's worth it.
I don't
I think
disagree with that end of it, but the reason why I had him so high in my list was because of the fact he has more options to steal, so you're more likely going to get a unit that's going to be more impactful on the board when he comes out.
Sure.
He's also in Villainy, which has a lot of removal. Likely, you're going to be pairing him with Bombing Run and Super Laser Blast. So both
Sure.
of those cards can help you reset the game board before he comes out to try to help you survive. But yes, you are going to be a big target at the turn he comes out. As someone who's played him multiple times, people go, "Oh, Palp's coming out. We need to get rid of this guy."
Gotta get this guy.
And I was like, "Oh no, no, look at me!"
I mean, I think a big reason that I think Palp is this high up also is again that card advantage with his ability. You do destroy your own units, but you can swing with them, get value out of them first, use their abilities, their when plays, their when defeated, right, and then draw that additional card and get that ping, giving you more options with how you deal with the board.
Great. Well, I think it's time we move on to our top tier, the S tier. In here we have Iden, Han, and Sabine. What are our thoughts?
I'd like to talk about Sabine first. I think just because I think, in my opinion, Sabine kind of, even though we have her as number 3, and I agree that she's probably at the number 3 spot compared to these other two. I think she is the leader that defines the pace of the game more than any other leader because of her ability to essentially like almost an extra blast counter, blast token, right? To be pinging everybody's base. I mean, including your own, but having a Sabine, even just one Sabine player in the game drastically increases the pace and can even force like these slower leaders like Palpatine and Vader force the game to end before those leaders even deploy, right? So while I don't think she's like the absolute strongest, it's just that alone, her ability to just define the tempo of
Of
the
the
whole
game.
game is so powerful that's why she's ranked this high for me.
Definitely. And you are dealing damage to everybody's bases equally.
Yeah.
So that doesn't necessarily make you a target,
Mhm.
right? Like maybe it's we gotta get this Sabine player because they keep pinging us. They're annoying, but
Yeah.
But you
Well, you
do
also
target yourself too, which is like
yeah,
Yeah,
it's like
so
exactly.
she
double.
So it's
deploys,
like
yeah.
it's the most diplomatically neutral thing you could be doing. One to everybody.
Yeah. We are
And
all going to die.
and let's be fair, right? You can't just remove someone from the game, right? It's not like you can just defeat them and then play the rest of the game without them.
Mhm.
Like in other games, because the first person to get defeated ends the game
Triggers the end game.
once the phase is completed. So just because everyone might not like the Sabine player doesn't mean they can just say, "Oh, let's
You
get
could
rid of
just
this together." So you know, having that big target on your back isn't always the worst thing if you can still close it out.
which is true. But that kind of brings us into the next boy, Han Solo, which is the leader that I've personally played the most in my limited experience so far. And I've been pairing him with Luke and getting out both of them on turn 4 or even 3 with a resupply absolutely makes you one of the biggest targets at the table. And my win percentage is very, very, very low actually because of it. So
So
I go ahead.
I think that's right. That's where I think I have my biggest disagreement with this list. To me, Han is clearly the best because he provides you with so much advantage that you become the biggest threat. I definitely think it's a valid argument to say because you're such a big threat, your win percentage goes down. But just when I'm thinking of like leaders that are going to give me the most advantage, Han Solo seems like the number one leader for that.
I mean,
Yeah.
and he does, and he's fun to play, and getting out the boys a turn sooner is cool and fun and stuff, but it's kinda hard to win with it so far.
Yeah, I think I'd love to pair him with Cassian personally. I think didn't Xander have that on the thing today? Was Han Cassian that he won with?
I think so.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've been meaning to try that combo because it seems really strong. Cashin kind of negates Han's,
Hmm.
negative of needing to burn your own cards to be able to do these insane plays.
Right. And then I think you can have the blue as your base, so that way you get access to a lot of the Sentinels to help keep your leaders alive and try to build that pressure. Because I think one of the problems that one of the things that Luke helps alleviate with Han is that when you come out, you can really protect your leader with his shields, right? So like you don't get that much with Cassian. Obviously, you get the card advantage, but you don't get the protection as much. So you can kind of do your big turn, get your leaders out, and then everyone gang up against you and destroy all your leaders, and it's like kind of pointless, right? So I think having Sentinels with those leaders is pretty important for them to kind of keep them alive to help you win.
I think Han just makes every
Mm.
hero, every leader in the hero alignment just so open to play. He makes a great natural buddy with Chewbacca, who you can get out so much earlier. You can get potentially Sabine out turn one is so with a resupply is such a fun option. So he just opens up a lot of different play lines.
Yeah, absolutely. But the last one that we have first, which wasn't my first one, I had Han as well, is Iden, who I do love and am a big fan of. And I think the first game I ever played, I played her with Palpatine. And my opponents traded units, and it came to my turn, and I was like, I'm gonna heal one. And everyone went, oh, it's whenever
Yeah.
a unit dies.
Yes.
Like it was like they all like everyone kind of realized like, oh wait, whenever a unit dies, J Rod can just heal one.
And
Like
pass, and pass. Heal
yeah,
one and
and
pass,
I
essentially.
can sit there and wait and like I'm just like, yes, Iden's great. So again, I think these soft passes are really, really good. And Iden can definitely soft pass anyways, because if you don't get the heal, you can just choose you just don't get the heal, you just can still use her ability to pass. So
Yeah, we talked about it briefly with Jared. Also, he mentioned, but since there's no passing in this format, having an ability to do that is pretty strong. And so, Iden and Sabine both have something that they can do that with. But Iden's also just being able to heal and just kind of again, it doesn't really draw too much attention to yourself. You're not really affecting other players' boards, so you're kind of keeping it,
Low key.
yeah, keeping it
On
low key and not drawing that attention and just slowly healing away damage, right? And then like Jared once said, when she's deployed, you're just healing a ton of damage, and she just becomes just kind of a monster. That's another reason that I really like Cassian, and I think Cassian is very strong and deserves that number 4 spot, is because Cassian has Saboteur to be able to hit Iden through her shield and get rid of her before she receives any buffs and starts healing way too much damage.
yeah, I think there was one turn that had I drawn Super Laser Blast, I think I could have healed for I think it was like 12, I think in the turn we did the math out for.
Yep.
That would have been a pretty amazing turn. I should have stacked the deck so I could have drawn that for the content play, but we don't cheat in our gameplays, so we didn't do that. But
Even something like a bombing run though, or an overwhelming barrage, like there's just a lot of removal in the colors you can run with her that you can get those big plays that can be really game changing.
yeah, I don't think Barrage is like I think it's clearly like the worst option of those three. Still
is.
great, don't get me wrong, but like Bombing Run can definitely be amazing. And I was trying to set it up in the game that we played with Gideon Hass that Carvin killed instead of the Rector Krennic, and I think
Good.
I probably would have won the game had he killed Krennic and not had killed my unit. But I'm not salty with that at all. Don't worry about it.
You
Well,
definitely don't sound salty.
Yeah.